Welcome to the Big Movement Podcast. If you're ready to create results and make huge strides in your business, finances, personal development, and health, then you're in the right place. Pushing past excuses and powering through procrastination can be a challenge alone. Here, you'll get the support, tools, and knowledge you need to get to the level you desire in your business and life. Let's get started with your host, Byron Ingram.
And welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today we have Fournier, who is a lawyer turned entrepreneur turned network marketer and business coach for entrepreneurs. Her biggest passion is helping entrepreneurs clarify. We're just going to do that part over there. Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah, sure, you okay?
Oh yeah. And it feels like do that and wow. Okay. A little sip of water there.
Okay.
Did 2 on that. Intro. Normally I don't do that, but I'll just edit that part out. Holy crap, wow. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. And here we go this time around.
Okay.
I know it. Whoa. And welcome to another episode of the podcast. Sitting. What the heck? Okay, time out. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, take a second.
Wow.
You can't
That's
just skim past that.
I tried it. I can power through this. It's nothing.
I gotta take a second.
Yeah. Okay, that worked great. All right. Let's see. Take 3.5, I think, right now. All right. Here we go. And welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today we have Fournier, who is a lawyer turned entrepreneur turned network marketer and business coach for entrepreneurs. Her biggest passion is helping entrepreneurs clarify their vision and take intentional action towards the real success they dream of. So we're going to learn how she does all this and more. So Chelsea, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be a part of the big movement. Thanks for having me on, Byron.
Sure, definitely. So how did you make this journey? Because, some people would think that you went through all of that to become a lawyer, then suddenly it's like, time to do something else.
I know, right? I am like the bearded lady. Everybody wants to see the lawyer that turned into a business coach and network marketer. But,
we're selling a mission. That's right. $5
exactly.
a ticket.
But I've always been a really purpose-driven person. But I feel like I got a little bit derailed and caught up. And I don't think, I'm alone in this, that many of us can kind of get caught up in the idea of what a certain path is going to look like or feel like. And you just kind of attach to a goal and go full steam ahead and get there. And for me, I decided to go to law school after having a psych degree. And, what do you do with a psych degree at 19 years old? And, kind of figuring out what you want to do. So I had a psychology degree and realized I didn't want to pursue really a profession in psychology. So I went to law school because I had some experience working in law firms and knew a lot of friends and family who were lawyers. So not super intentional of really thinking about the end result. And what I found was my skill sets really do play to that profession of being really detail oriented, being able to communicate like complex things. I'm a really fast learner. But when I got out into the workforce and was doing that work, just because I was good at that and some of it came easy to me, didn't really mean that it was the lifestyle outcome that I wanted, and started to kind of, actually, to be very honest with your audience, I was having severe anxiety attacks. And I like to share that with people because I know, again, I'm not alone in getting to a place sometimes in your life or your career where you feel so stuck that it takes on like a physical manifestation. And there was one morning, I can reflect back on a Tuesday morning, and I was getting ready to go into the office, and the work that I did wasn't like overly stressful. It wasn't like, anybody was beating me in the office or anything. It was just, I felt so stuck and on the wrong path that I was having a particularly bad anxiety attack that morning. I could not breathe. I had to put on a suit and a smile and be running a closing in less than an hour. And I just asked myself, like, it's not like everything changed right then, but my mindset changed of saying, wow, I just don't think I'm okay with this. I could put a Band-Aid on this and say it's fine and schedule massage and, learn meditation techniques or whatever to make believe this is okay. But like, this is not okay.
Right.
And so that decision that morning really deciding, I didn't really know what was going to be better or what the next steps were, but I just really consciously decided I'm not okay with this being my next 50 years. And so I've got to become open-minded and really explore what I can do. And so sometimes I think it's harder to do something different than to just do that proverbial Band-Aid of saying, well, I chose this and I have my 6 figures of student loans, so I'm just going to make the best of this. And so really fast forwarding the past 6-7 years have been a journey, not always pretty, not always a positive trajectory the whole way, but kind of reclaiming what I want my lifestyle and my career and the value I bring to people to look like a little bit more intentionally.
And it's great that you mentioned that. Not that it was great that you had to go through it, but you think about like that's right. And life was kind of crappy, but we're glad you went through it. 2 thumbs up on that. But if you think about it, how many people out there, they've done something similar to you, whether it was law school or it was something else, and they thought that this is going to be the most amazing career, and then they get into it, they're like, oh, I was sold a sack of goods. This sucks. And they don't have the courage to leave it behind because there's that fear of the unknown, that fear of uncertainty, that at least they know now, like, okay, yeah, they're stressed out, they're having these health issues, but they know that they're okay, at least financially. But you look at what it does to them versus, let's roll the dice and see what happens, and you reclaim your life. And sure, there's the roller coaster of the ups and downs, but you're not going through those same things, because I'm pretty sure that once you decide to start moving away from that, did the anxiety, those things start disappearing?
It was not a light switch of like on and off, right? But I did start prioritizing certain things and being more intentional, as far as maybe planning my time to include things of the nature such as like informational interviews. I started going to networking events where I would meet people other than lawyers. I met some business coaches. So I kind of had this evolution where if I knew I couldn't just make a leap to be like, hey, really good income, no income. And I think a lot of us who want to become entrepreneurs, you get that bug of realizing you want to do something different, but you can't just be like, oh, sweet, I have 4 years of income saved up, here I go, for most people. And so I just started prioritizing small actions that could help me figure out, maybe it's not the end all be all. Maybe I'm not going to go right from A to B and be happy, but like, what's A.1, A.2, like finding steps where I could explore a little bit more openly and really just allowing my mind to be open to the fact that, I didn't know for sure what my first kind of choice was right. And I wasn't for sure that I was going to just abandon it. So how do I explore other opportunities, other ways of using my skill sets? And so it definitely wasn't, for your listeners who might be in that same position of feeling like just that stuck feeling. For me anyway, it was not like day one I decided and day 2 I was a wild success. It's been definitely a journey, but feel really solid about where I am right now. And so all of the ups and downs between have been worth it because I'm really excited about where I'm going.
Right. And, it's great that you mentioned that it wasn't just the flick of a light switch, because you think of how many people have this misconception that when they start business, because they hear of someone saying, oh my gosh, it was this wild ride from day one, or it was, we did this and then went one level of success and another. But what they didn't tell you is that was their current venture. They kind of left out what happened to the past 7 or 8 of them that were total disasters.
That's so true. One of my biggest pet peeves is the concept of overnight successes being marketed on Facebook and in podcasts and stuff where it's like all of a sudden, oh, this overnight success story, because it doesn't show you what's below that tip of the iceberg of, the anxiety attacks or the lost money or the, tried and failed businesses before you get to the one business where it looks like an overnight success, but everybody doesn't know the backstory. I almost feel like it's a disservice. That's why I'm 100% transparent and authentic, because people need to understand what it takes to really get to an ideal lifestyle outcome or to really find the level of success they want in a business. So I keep it real because I think we all need to be honest about what it takes and that it's worth it. It definitely is.
Right. Well, we need that sense of realism because there's too, as you see out there every day, there's too many people that they're painting the fake lifestyle. Like, I think one of my biggest pet peeves out there, the people who want to, let's say, they create this perfect image. So, they'll rent a location for the day where it looks like this nice, like, let's say, setting where they have a pool in the house. Oh, look, they're by the car, and they're arriving to this on a plane. Like, okay, they pay like $1,500 to rent all these things for the day because they want you to buy their stuff. In reality, they're living in the spare bedroom with their mom.
Totally. Absolutely. I think the more real we can be in the marketplace, like you almost can't help, even if you have a sense of feeling like, oh, I'm looking at this photo shoot and that's probably what they did, right? When you're in a place of self-doubt, you can't help but fall into comparatitis of saying, well, this is their journey and my journey looks so crappy, right? And so I think the more real we can be, I've done some of my live videos recently in my apartment where I was moving out of and completely downsizing. Just went from a 2-bedroom to putting everything in our life into a 5x10 storage unit to start kind of living that laptop lifestyle. But, I was doing my live videos with my boxes behind me because I was like, people need to know that like actually downsizing to live that laptop lifestyle and travel is actually a little bit stressful, like getting the process going and stuff. And I think people really appreciate seeing the journey. So then when they're in that journey, they're not feeling crazy. Like, why has it been so easy for everybody else? Because it hasn't been. People just kind of gloss over that.
And I think you add another component to it because of all the fakeness, the people putting the advertisements out there to paint this perfect picture. And then when people are investing in these courses, they realize, well, this is a crock of crap because they're not delivering on what they promised. There's no substance. You get the same thing if you just watch 5 videos on YouTube and they're trying to sell it for a ton of money. People want that authenticity. So if they see you like, hey, here's the boxes, they can see the struggle of, that you can only take so many things with you. So you have to start deciding, do you really need this or not?
Absolutely. Because everybody, for me, a big part of why a wake-up call I had that I actually didn't know, this is how unintentional I was about my law career. I remember going through law school, and in the last semester, we had to start signing up for the bar exam, which is kind of the preparatory or certification that, yes, you can be a lawyer. And I remember looking at the application, and I literally had no idea that certification to be a lawyer is state by state. And my whole dream and love is travel. And I want to live in multiple states. And at that point, I can remember having a gut reaction of like, oh, shoot, I didn't know this. Like, no one talks about that end result. And I just hadn't educated myself. And so it sounds silly now, but, I was like 23 when I graduated law school. I hadn't thought about all those things. And so I remember checking off and being like, I can only live and work in Maine and Massachusetts. Like, this is horrible.
Right.
But I didn't know that. And so that's why I really encourage people, like, whether it's starting a business, getting into a career, like, interview people who have that success that you think you want and really talk about it and then match it up. Does that match the lifestyle that you want? If I had understood that, I actually ended up kind of creating a federal practice where I could work with clients anywhere. By virtue of the specialty that I started working in, but it felt very crippling, and all of a sudden my world just got smaller, and I think now that's part of why now that I'm growing my businesses online and have that geographic flexibility, I'm excited about that flexibility, but then there's kind of unwinding the normal life of filling a space. You own a house and all of a sudden you fill it with stuff. And so now that we're kind of reversing that, I'm like, okay, this is actually work. There's intentionality of being a minimalist and living that lifestyle. It's just different than what I've been doing. So it's been a transition.
Right. And it's fascinating, that you're going to this transition to a minimalist lifestyle because you think of how many people go for the materialistic approach. They want to have the gargantuan house full of nice things, but then you realize, how much of this stuff do you really use?
Yeah.
And you think about how many people were, in terms of that definition of success, where in the past it was always, you must have, the a big house with the 2.5 garage and so on and so on. Yet you look at how many people have followed that, the quote unquote American dream, but then you look at their life. What are they doing to live it? That they're working insane hours every single week to maintain that particular lifestyle. And if you were to ask them vacation, was the last time they took one? They have that blank stare like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's too long.
Right. Like, well, we went to the zoo the other week. Like, that doesn't really count.
Yeah.
So, or like, we stayed at a hotel downtown. No, that doesn't really count. That's like just going down the street a little bit. You need to really go somewhere.
Absolutely. And I recently taught just kind of like I guess I would call it a master class, kind of helping people prepare for the end of the year. If your listeners are listening, to this live, I was talking about this kind of at the end of September of the year, and really talked about the 4 key things I think people should focus on as they wrap up their year. And the first one is to dream bigger. And part of the reason I think we get stuck in filling our lives with material things or like settling for something that's not as exciting or fulfilling as we want is that as we grow up, right, and become more adult, our dreams aren't as supported. Like when you're little, if you say you want to be an astronaut, everybody's like, yeah, you can do it. If you say that at 24, people are like, do you have the, training and requirements and stuff? So
Right.
I really encourage, especially entrepreneurs, if you're in that employee mindset, and if some of your listeners are like working for someone else and want to make that leap or have recently become an entrepreneur, is that the first thing you've got to start switching in your mind is allowing yourself to dream bigger. Because I hate when people say, a pet peeve of mine is when people start talking about what they want to have happen in their business, and then you can physically see them shrink and say, oh, but I don't want to get my hopes up, right? Like, if you don't get your hopes up for your life, who's going to? So if ever you start dreaming bigger and then all of a sudden shrink your shoulders and start to play that tape of like, well, I don't want to get my hopes up. It would be nice if this happened, but no big deal if it doesn't. Like that diminutizing of your dreams does not help anyone. And so the first thing I encourage people to do when they're starting to work for themselves, wanting that, the big movement, I love the name of this podcast, is really to just recognize that the ability to dream is beaten out of us in culture and in academia, and that it's okay to actually have this detox of those thinking, those patterns, to then be like, almost picture yourself snapping an elastic and being like, whoa, that doesn't serve me. Instead, how can I allow myself to dream bigger, but, have some habits and practices that will actually get me there?
Right. That's important because so many times we lose that vision, just like you said, of we have those people supporting us when we're younger, but then as we're growing older, look at the number of people that they start justifying mediocrity instead of going for your dreams. Like, oh, that's too hard, that's difficult, you might fail. Versus when you're younger, you could do it. Whether you can or not, there's that motivation.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, this is obviously a blanket statement and doesn't apply to every employment situation, but in most employment situations, your boss is paying you just enough to keep you there because they can't just willy-nilly give you extra money for their bottom line. And as an employee, typically, we're just showing up and doing enough to keep that job. And so it's the employment mentality does not really support, in most settings, unless you work at Google or somewhere really cool, doesn't really support you going above and beyond. I was just talking to a coaching client who's actually nervous about doing too much at work because she keeps getting additional responsibilities and no extra pay. And so she's like, I almost want to be smaller. I want to be doing less so I'm under the radar. And that's not a good feeling to show up to. So I feel like if you are shifting, trying to make that big movement in your life or your business happen, just like honestly accepting that, shedding that employee mindset to really allow yourself to dream bigger, create a plan for yourself, get support to do that. It takes a little while. It took me a couple years and a failed business to be like, oh, I need to dream bigger and not just, hope that it works.
Right. And I think you touched something really important about the concept of work, because you hear that all the time. If people, just like your client, if they're doing more than average, and their reward, instead of, hey, let's give you more money because you're doing such a great job, no, we're going to give you more work because obviously we didn't give you enough to do in the first place.
Absolutely.
Like, wait a minute, that's not the right mentality.
Yeah.
But you think about it, how many people that results in, they're doing more than all of their peers, they're not making any more money, so they start getting frustrated, so they leave. So that causes the morale to go down. But then you look at the people who, they do just enough to get by, they stay under the radar, they're doing more than enough so that way they don't get in trouble, but they're doing enough so that way they're not getting extra work handed to them. So they're just kind of leeching off the system, which is the exact opposite of what you must do to be an entrepreneur. There's not like, oh, you could just do enough of the bare minimum to get by. Like, oh no, there's no minimum. Like, it's either you do it or you don't.
Absolutely.
So it's a total shift.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what I fell in love a little bit with the industry of network marketing, and just the concepts of having a home-based business or launching a coaching business or doing something as a side gig. This, side gig economy is fascinating to me because it allows you to show up in your day job, but then, have something on the side when you get home to clock into for an hour or two, instead of watching TV, to have an intentional plan of what you're trying to do in your business. And I think it's interesting because it allows you to have that education and the ups and downs and maybe some failures and learning curve without risking so much, so that you can still show up to your day job and get your paycheck. But in the evening, instead of checking out and watching TV to numb your brain, so many people now are saying, no, I want to do better for myself. I would like to launch something that eventually could match or even surpass my day job income. And I think that's a really cool shift happening in our country here in the US. And if some of your listeners are in other countries, absolutely, I see it happening globally as well. And it's interesting to see it coming back to entrepreneurship in whatever form that looks like for you.
Right. And I believe when you look at that entire shift there, it's so much of it's because people are wanting more and they're realizing there's opportunities out there. It's no longer that time and era when if you wanted to make more money, the only thing you could do was just take a second job. But people are looking at the quality of their life and realizing they have talents, they have skills, there's so many things that you can do. You look at with the proliferation of the internet being everywhere, there's opportunities all over the place that 20, 30 years ago, they just didn't exist.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you think of, as an example of, with, I'm going to use the iPhone, of 10 years ago, you didn't have app developers developing games and productivity apps and so forth. But now you look at the number of companies that are thriving because of that. And the number of people that decided, let me just create a game out of fun and out of a whim, and poof, it becomes extremely popular because they followed a passion. So things are changing, but it's still a matter of you have to start off with doing something when you have that safety net. So then when it came to network marketing, of all the different choices out there, what made you say, this sounds like a good idea. I'm going to give this a shot.
Like many things in life that are good for you, sometimes they come at you when you're least expecting or searching, right? So at the time, I was actually working full-time as a lawyer. I think at that time, I was working in a firm that I had co-founded, so kind of entrepreneurial, but doing the lawyer work. I also had actually a weekly podcast and a coaching business on the side that was working with, ironically, lawyers that might need some more direction in their career planning. And then I had been pitched, I'll be honest, I'm that sucker friend. Like, if you launch a business, I'm going to sit down with you, I'm going to buy you coffee, I'm going to give you some ideas, whether it's traditional business or network marketing or whatever. I just like to support people doing something new. And so because of that, a lot of the free coffees I had bought or been, given were over little pitches of network marketing. And what was interesting is I would always support people, maybe give them some feedback on how they presented it to me, and maybe buy something from them just to, help them get launched and whatnot. But I had never seen a business plan that really made sense to me as far as what I would look for in any business that I would invest in or get involved with. And so it really was the right opportunity needed to come to me and be presented in the right way. And so what happened in my life is that actually my sister learned about a product line that was being grown through network marketing, and there was no representation in our state yet, except for one couple that had shared it with her. And so what's interesting is it came to me in the only way that I probably ever would have really looked at it, which was researching it for someone else, right? So my sister asked me, hey, I've been researching this product line. They use a network marketing model. I don't really know anything about that, how to vet if it's good or not. So can you do some research? And I started looking at links and, coming to understand how many companies are public versus not, privately held, and patent protected products versus kind of public products, and started looking at the factors and was like, oh, this one makes sense to me. And so if it had just been a pitch at me, I probably wouldn't have even looked at it. But because I'm such a nerd and so due diligence focused, because it was really just being presented to me as, hey, can you look at this for me from someone I cared about, I actually put more time into learning about it. And I just saw the best business plan I had come across, and in a model that allows you to have that growing and earning curve before you have to go full time. So I figured, I'm going to be on these products the rest of my life anyway. Why not give it a shot? And it became probably the most significant decision career-wise for me. It's been amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's great that you mentioned something that most people don't do, and that's that due diligence, doing the research. Because you think about how many people they have a friend says, you've got to jump in. They're like, okay. And they never bother to look at what the heck they're doing. Does it make any financial sense or anything?
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, the product you're offering, there's a similar thing at Walmart. Why are you selling it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think, to be fair, within this industry, there's lots of people who get involved for different reasons. And it can get a bad
Right.
rap to say, like, oh, people don't make money in it. But most people who do get involved aren't really intending to make money. A lot of people are attracted for the social side, especially if it's more of like a party mentality
Right.
introduction. Some people are just like excited about that. But for me, I'm pretty black and white, and I'm a numbers girl. So I'm not going to put time and attention or take my billable hours away from something or for something that's not worthwhile. And so for me, I was really vetting it as a business opportunity. But some people, and get involved in any number of ventures for different reasons, for finding purpose, for growing their social circle, for, just feeling like they're a part of something. But for me, I was looking at it as a business. And so I asked the business questions that I would have if it was a brick and mortar store looking for me to invest, just looking at the business plan, and was it a solid opportunity?
Right. That's important that you did that, because it's understanding your why. Because if people don't take the right approach to it, they struggle. Or the other aspect, I think, where people end up struggling, and it doesn't matter if it's network marketing or just as an entrepreneur, they're not looking at it as a business and then getting the right
Yeah.
business skills in place to grow it. Like if you're just going to be running around, let's say going from one networking group to another, trying to recruit an army of distributors, it's not going to happen. You have to
Yeah.
look at of how do you approach this? Like if you were a recruiter for a Fortune 500 company, where are you going to find your sales team at? Where are you going to find those recruits at? You have to change your psychology of how you approach it in order to create success.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's been an interesting growth and learning curve for me to learn a whole other profession, because it really is a profession. I think some people get involved in the industry and just think, oh, I'm going to get my money back and then I'm going to be a millionaire. And some of that, what we were talking about in the beginning of that overnight success dream, without really understanding that it's an entirely new profession. And, when I got in, even when I got out of law school, right? So 3 years of being in law school, you get out and realize, oh, I learned nothing practical. Like, I
Right.
don't know what to say to this client. So then you have another 2 or 3 years of gaining experience, ideally being mentored by someone, getting that client day-to-day experience, and then you start to feel comfortable kind of pitching the bigger potential clients and stuff. And so it's the same in network marketing, but a lot of people kind of try to skip that learning phase or feel like if they're not making good money during the learning phase that they're failing, when you wouldn't feel that way in any other industry. So I just went into it and said, you know what, this is a 3 to 5 year trial for me. I'm going to do what the top earners and the leaders say I should be doing, and started to find that I really love. This is probably no surprise, but because I had had a coaching background, got trained in coaching, had a side coaching business, and then got into network marketing, what I find is I love coaching my team, right? So I take my team's success pretty seriously, and I do a lot of coaching and mentoring because that's what I love. So it's just a different venue instead of having, I have private coaching clients that are traditional entrepreneurs as well as home-based business owners outside of my team. But I just like coaching people and helping to empower them to have a realistic plan and move forward. So it's just a different venue for me to do that, which is really fun.
And that's great because you found that perfect blend of what makes sense for you in terms of coaching versus the network marketing. And that's what people have to do. But the bigger thing is that you went into it knowing that this is that 3 to 5 year journey. It's not in 30 days, I'm
Yeah.
going to do blank. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
And I'm seeing it
It,
play out. I'm 4.5 years into this business, and I'm finally reaching that level where I have a little bit more freedom. I can breathe, I can travel. So, if I had given up 2 years in, I would have been bummed. But, in so many businesses, they say people quit 3 feet from gold, right? Like if you picture someone mining gold and then giving up 3 feet before they hit the big vein. And I just wasn't willing to let that happen to me. I think sometimes stubbornness and grit is my strongest asset as an entrepreneur. But
mhm.
if I see something that can work and is working for people, I just don't believe that I can't have it. I'm going to, figure it out, tweak, learn, invest in my learning, get to trainings, find mentors, because there's no reason if it's been done, anyone who really wants to put in the effort and time can't have something. When I see someone who has achieved a level of success that I want, I don't get jealous. I get excited because I'm like, oh, sweet, someone can do it, so I can. I just got to figure
Right.
out, the style that's going to work for me.
Right, exactly. That's the key to it all. You have to figure out what's going to work best for you because not everybody's going to want to do that because you look at the concept of mentorship and you see what's out there, especially in network marketing, the number of people say, "Oh, you've got to do it this way. I achieve success at it," and
Hmm.
then you realize that's not resonating with you. You have to find
Yeah.
what's going to work with you. Who out there is doing it in a way that it resonates with you, and then model them.
Yeah, that's been a big part of my last year and a half because I'm super coachable, and if any of your listeners who are in the industry are listening, biggest thing is to be coachable. But I was super coachable and taught pretty old school network marketing methods in the beginning of like driving to people's homes, coffee shops, meetings. And because I'm coachable and I wanted to learn the skills, I grew my business pretty quickly to be within the top 1% of our company, but based on like in person activity. And that wasn't super sustainable for me or duplicatable. So for the past year and a half, I've really been following, modeling, being mentored by, coached by people of really how to do this online because, I don't want to be stuck in a state like I was practicing law. I want to be able to have that laptop lifestyle. So it's been a learning curve, but it's been so fun and fascinating to learn new skills and trial and error, but really intentionally moving my business to be, not 100% online because any business still has relationship building and, wanting to meet face to face if you can. But,
Right.
really figuring out for me, my big lesson, right, of going into law school and waking up in anxiety attacks was that I needed to work backwards from the lifestyle. And I really encourage people, to, if you, yes, to dream bigger, but to dream about like the day to day. Like, what do you want to have happening and work backwards from that? Because otherwise, just saying you want $10,000 a month residually, like, what does that mean? Does it mean that you're going to travel? Can you picture the house that you're going to buy? Or does it just mean you're going to be spending $10,000 a month and your life's going to be the same, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily mean change if you're not intentional about it. And so, for me, I've been very intentional about becoming a minimalist and minimizing expenses so that as my business grows, I have those options. So, when I'm renting a beach house, it's not going to be the fanciest beach house. It's going to be a nice beach house where I can run my business from. And that's kind of where my mentality is. And, a great resource for entrepreneurs listening. I don't know if you've promoted this before in the past, but the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill has been a huge part of I think I read it 4 times through. I finished it, started it, finished it, started, to really let some of it sink in. And now about every day I pick it up and read a couple pages because I'm still beating that employee mindset out of my mind and making sure that I'm falling in love with the vision of what I really want so I can attract it. I'm a big believer in the law of attraction and that what you focus on expands. And that's been a really great resource for me to, make that shift and hopefully continue to dream bigger and to really adopt habits. I think something else that's challenging in network marketing, in building a coaching business, in anything where all of a sudden you're jumping in and you want it to happen faster. There's a fine line between being effective and being inauthentic, right? Like being efficient or effective, maybe you try to grab scripts from somebody and like copy and paste messages to 100 potential clients or something. And that's totally inauthentic and it matters and people can tell. So I really train myself, my team, my coaching clients around habits of success and figuring out how to get to where you want to be, strategy, philosophies, habits, so that you're not hoping to be a copy and paste, success, to really ingrain the habits, understand what you need to do long-term to have what you want and get to that intentional planning. And Think and Grow Rich has been a really big factor for me in that.
Oh, that's excellent. So when you began making that journey to going from essentially doing the belly-to-belly recruiting and growing your business, what were some of the things that you began doing online that you still do today that have become that foundation? Because some people out there are thinking, well, I get tired of just going to everybody's houses and trying to do these parties and this and that, but I'm not sure what I should be doing online.
Yeah, that's a really good question because there's so many, if you're searching this stuff, right, you scroll through Facebook and see so many sponsored ads of, set up funnels or do this or do that, video, da-da-da-da. And what I have found, I've boiled it down to 3, what I call power habits that I go through every day in the course of an hour. So many entrepreneurs are doing their work to grow a business on top of a full-time job if they haven't made that tipping point yet. And so I tried to focus on what can you do in an hour a day that's really effective, but then you're still going to have to personalize it to your goals and what you want to do. But in 3 hours a day on Facebook, what I focus on as like core habits is creating good content, like not just being a voyeur on Facebook, creating posts that matter, whether it's live video, whether it's curiosity posts about a product or your business, but intentionally learning how to create content. And then learning, the second power habit is to connect and engage, right? So you don't want to just rely on putting a post out and waiting for people to flood in and buy your product. Like if someone likes your post, strike up a conversation, be a normal human being, talk to them about why they liked it, how their day's going, like have real conversation. And power habit number 3 is every day I try to focus on having authentic communications that may or may not lead to business, right? Like obviously you need to learn the skills of how to convert conversations to hopefully your agenda if it makes sense. But every day I try to start 2 to 3 conversations that I know are going to have nothing to do with business because you still need to focus on building real relationships. And sometimes those surprise me that I actually learn something about someone and feel like I might have a solution for them in something that I work with and can, make that flip, but it's authentic. So I focus on content creation, connection and engagement with people that like the content that I'm creating, and then making sure that I'm really grounded in authentic communication. And this is something that I've been teaching lots of people over the past year, and I have a free guide. I'd be happy to get you a link to share with your listeners if they want more details on that. but I call it my 3 Facebook power habits to grow your side business in less than 1 hour a day, and have gotten some really great feedback, because you do need to, if you're looking at this like I do, of launching a business, whatever it is, to get through that valley of death is that 3 to 5 year commitment. And so, I think that was just ingrained in me, because so many of my clients, right, as a lawyer, I was actually a startup lawyer. So many of my clients, I would set them up, they'd be all excited, get their shiny LLC or trademark or business plan, right? And then a year later, I'd have to call them to re-register them with the state. Couldn't find them. Like a certain percentage every year would be like, oh man, I really thought John would make it. And so I knew that was reality in any business model. So I was just grounded in that. And so a lot of what I teach is making sure that you're not just trying to have that lottery mentality of finding the perfect script that you can copy and paste to 10,000 people and boom, you're going to be a millionaire. It's really about like daily habits. What can you do? What are your most impactful actions? And for me, these 3 Facebook power habits, kind of tweaked for my goals and my personality, have become a big part of why I've been so successful.
Those are great habits, because so many people, they don't think about that it's called a social network for a reason. And we have to learn how to be social instead of just shouting out there like, buy my stuff, you're going to love it, I promise.
Unfollow.
No. We're going, yeah, delete, block.
Exactly.
Because I can think of so many times that people, they connect with someone in an inauthentic way. I can remember one time in particular. You're in a group with a bunch of people, someone sends you a friend request, like, oh, we're in the same group, okay. Yeah. And next thing you know, it feels like you're going through the Spanish Inquisition, and you're like, seriously? Like, yeah. Goodbye, click.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about launching a business for yourself?
Right. Did you read my profile? And that's I think it's one of the biggest things that people, no matter what they take away from our conversation, make sure that you look at people's profiles, because there's so many times people don't do that. And it's actually kind of comical. I'm thinking about this. A person I know who does a ton and like speaks on stages with all about Facebook ads, runs them for, big, major corporations. And it's funny that you'll post onto Facebook, get these like requests on LinkedIn, or people just message you like, hey, have you thought about starting a business? Or like, we can teach you how to leverage social media to grow your business. And it's the most comical thing to see. Like,
I'm all set.
Do you have any idea who the person you just messaged is? Like, okay, like, yeah, people go to this person for this type of advice, and they're going back to amateur hour, but it just goes back down to, you have to forge relationships that kind of go, okay, I'm just going to send this copy and paste thing to everybody. Like, okay, yeah, that works great. So you have to do your homework and not just dive in there and just assume that because someone says, here's what you should do, it doesn't mean you should do it. It's kind of like someone saying, if someone wants to hand you, like, let's say a ghost pepper or something like that, like, it's really spicy, you're going to love it. You probably want to do your homework first to see what's really going to happen.
Well, and that's why I call a big part of my brand is about helping people become an intentional entrepreneur. Because, for me, I'll be really honest, when I was really miserable practicing law, I was that person that was like Googling at 2 a.m, stressed out, being like, how could I work from home legit? And, is it coaching? Is it blogging? Is it network marketing? And so I was that person that was looking, but I knew that it wouldn't be an overnight success. But like, there are those people that are looking, and they just need to get in with realistic expectations, that if it's going to be a side gig and you're putting part-time effort in, it's going to take a while to build. And, you're going to have to put in the learning, maybe even before you're earning enough to pay for a training, because you do have to learn those skill sets. But you've got to be authentic. So in the beginning, I hate the phrase fake it till you make it, because I just don't even like faking it for a second. I remember on my first couple calls to talk to someone about my business, I was like, dude, I'm super nervous. This is my first call. Can you just like not laugh at me? Right? Like, if you just own where you are and don't try to be more than you are, most people will honor that. And if they still hang up on you or are rude, like maybe they're just not very good friends because you're putting yourself out there. But that the copy and paste mentality of something happening really quickly, I was in a place of, I would say, feeling desperate, but I certainly didn't want to approach my business in desperation because people can feel that for sure.
Right. Yeah, it's something that you have to keep focusing on and being intentional with all of your efforts. And when it goes back to learning it, yeah, the whole fake it till you make it, you have to be authentic there. But if people are just getting started and they don't have the resources, let's say to hire a coach to, let's say, take a training course of some sort, you start where so many people had to begin. Like you can go to your local library, you can go to YouTube, and you can find so much content that gets you going to that point where then you can be able to grow your business to that level of, okay, now I can hire somebody to do blank.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's true. You can't, like, I was okay with the fact that you've got to be bad before you're good and good before you're great, right? But I just wanted the bad phase to be like as fast and painless as possible, right? So I remember just being really coachable and trying to find someone, a mentor or a model, so that I remember like driving in cars with people who, were in town from being, out of state, flying in to do a meeting or something and saying, can I pick you up at the airport? Like, I just want to see how you talk. And I want to know, like, how you run your day. And I would pick the brains of people that were willing to let me, whether they were in my company or just, people in the industry. I'm someone who is not ashamed or afraid to, if I like someone's book, I will email them. I will call them, like, follow up and see if there's anything else I can glean from them. And I think in a world where there can be way too much information thrown at you and you can just be stuck in learning forever, you really want to find one or two people that you really like the way they speak about something, the way they train something, and become part of their world instead of casually checking in on Facebook Lives from 17 people. Find, one or two people that you really like the way they present themselves on a live video, or you really like the people they bring on their podcast, right? And be in their world for a little bit so that you can actually learn and implement instead of being confused.
Right. And I think that's something extremely important because you look at how many people with all the ads that you'll see on Facebook, you'll see, here's my method. And then 2 minutes later, here's another person. And it's another one like, oh, don't do it this way. The other ways don't work. Like, they just said it does. So what you really have to focus in on is, that always annoys, like, how can you say something doesn't work when there's all these people here that are doing it? You just discredit yourself, but that's a different story. But what you have to do is pick that one or two people to listen to and block everybody else out. Otherwise, you're going to be taken in 1,000 different directions because everybody has a different path of how they achieved a certain level of success. And if you're trying to go do everything that everybody does, you're just going to go around in a circle instead of actually running the marathon.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I feel like an artist. You know how artists have like phases, like the blue phase, the abstract phase, right? In my entrepreneurial journey, I've had like a Darren Hardy phase where I needed to understand entrepreneurship and mindset. And I devoured every book, every audiobook was, his Darren Daily. And then once I felt really confident about realistic expectations, okay, then I needed to be in a skill building phase. And so, just always challenging yourself. I like immersion of being in someone's world until I feel like I've graduated it. Not that I need permission of them saying, you are done, like in college, but just being like, okay, I think I've gotten these habits down. Where do I need to grow next? And sometimes I do read, like Think and Grow Rich. I read books 3, 4, 5 times in a row because sometimes it takes me that long. Maybe I'm a slow learner, but sometimes it takes me that long to really get the habits that I'm trying to accrue out of those trainings instead of saying, oh, that was interesting, next, that was interesting. I really try to be in that world, master, and I guess that's kind of a fancy term, and you may never truly master something, but try to get to a place of at least ingraining what you were trying to get out of that training or that thought leader or that teacher, so that then you're actually doing and then putting another layer of learning in.
Right. That's what you need to do. It makes all the difference in the world. So as we begin wrapping up things here, what's one thing you recommend for entrepreneurs to do? So if they're truly looking at growing that success in their life and stop being inauthentic, what do you think they should be doing?
Yeah, it's actually two-part one thing, but it'll be quick. So the one thing really is to create a vision statement for yourself. Some people call them, affirmations or mantras or whatever, but I like to work in 3-month increments. So I call it a 3-month look back. So I like to really think about, okay, so 3 months from now, maybe it's December 31st, right? End of the year. What do I really want to have happen in my business that would be realistic, but kind of pushing the envelope of what I feel I could do to challenge me? And then to make a daily method of operation of what do you feel like you can do with your time commitments, with your current skill set? Like, what's a realistic daily plan to get you closer to there? And continue to tweak and get some feedback from a mentor or a coach if you need that. But to have a vision of where you're going and then a daily plan, even if you only have a half hour to work on your business, or if you have all day, like, how do you want to spend your time that you truly believe will get you closer to it? So that vision and action plan hand in hand.
And that's powerful because so many people in today's world, they'll create vision boards, they're doing all these amazing things. But then if you ask them, well, what actions are you taking? Well, I created my vision board. Like, really?
How's that going?
Like, yeah, that's just like kind of saying, oh, I want to go and like lose weight, but I can't give up eating tacos. So you have to actually take action on it. But that's what the world we live in. People have to, take action on specific goals they create. So then you know what you're doing on a daily basis. But so many people, they don't do that. And then an entire 12 months go by. They're like, well, what did I do? Well, I woke up.
Yep.
I went to work, went out with my friends, and now it's January 1st again.
Exactly. You don't want that to happen. You want to be an intentional entrepreneur.
Right, exactly. Well, I want to thank you for coming into the podcast today. How can people reach out to you and learn more about everything you do?
Yeah, so they can find me easily at chelseafournier.com. I have a pretty regular blog and some information there. Also, they can find me on Facebook. I have a business page that is Chelsea Fournier Online. And so I'm sure I can get some links over to you for the show notes as well. And I do free trainings and kind of bring people into my world, mostly through those. So if the way I spoke about things resonates with you, would be happy to have you join my Facebook fan.
Awesome. Well, once again, thank you for coming onto the podcast today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your work, and thank you for all the great interviews that you bring together. You're really putting together a phenomenal community, and honored to be a small part of it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Big Movement Podcast today. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now that you've surely been inspired to take your entrepreneurial career and business to the next level, you can stop by the website and get more. And if you're ready to boost your business brand, be sure to grab your free report, 7 Easy Steps to Build Your Brand Today.